fear could be a driver or a barricade. Now, naturally, barricade, I get that. Like, I've got all my fears. I know what they cost me, and our fears cost us lots of things. But driver, say a little bit more about that.
So when we feel the fear, you know the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, which was written back in the 1970s. The idea of feeling the fear and doing it anyway becomes that driver of, if I'm getting a signal that I'm afraid of something, then there's something here that needs to be explored. There's something here that's asking me to take the challenge, because it's a challenge. So what is it that you're uncertain about? What is it that you're in doubt about? Where is it that you're holding back because you're afraid that someone else is going to perhaps steal your thunder, or is going to tell you you're no good, or whatever? What is the messages that are in your head that limit who you are? So the fear as a driver is simply, it's like an alarm bell going off. Oh, there's something to be worked on here. And if you're willing to take the challenge, and that's what it is, it's like somebody screaming at you going, okay, what do you want to do with this one?
Okay, folks, our topic today for the show is going to be fear. So before you turn off and stop listening, let me explain a little bit. So I think we live in a world right now where fear is so pervasive. And we talk about contagious emotions. There is no emotion more contagious than fear. So my guest today, Jacqueline Wales, she's the CEO and president of the Fearless Factor at Work. She's going to talk all about fear. And we're going to talk about not only how it gets in our way and what it costs us, but some great ways to push past that. She's got some real practical ideas on how we can challenge that fear, push past it, and stretch, so we don't have it hold us back, and we can realize the lives that we're all meant to have. So listen real close to Jacqueline, and at the end of the show, as I always do, I'll provide you all my notes. I took a whole full page, and we'll talk about kind of how we can actually take those ideas and help you take fear out of your life.
The Workplace Therapist Show is sponsored by the Leadership Foundry. Bringing a cutting-edge, real-world approach to leadership development, the Leadership Foundry partners with each client organization to create a custom-tailored experience, virtual or in person, that combines innovative leadership content, world-class facilitators, and one-on-one coaching to ensure your leaders have everything they need to grow and thrive. To find out more and to design your one-of-a-kind program, visit myleadershipfoundry.com.
Jacqueline, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I'm so excited for our topic of really how do we become more fearless. Of course, we can't talk about being fearless without talking about fear, which is often the big elephant in the room for all of us. But before we jump into this really important topic today, for my listeners, share a little bit about kind of what you do today and how you got so passionate about this topic.
So today I work with highly accomplished women. And when I say highly accomplished women, these are senior level people in their organizations or they're entrepreneurs who have created startups and have made some success out of it. But no matter where you are on the ladder of the success equation, there's always that piece behind the scenes of uncertainty, self-doubt, so on and so forth. So I work a lot with the coaching of these women as a trusted advisor for these women, and also creating conversations amongst those women. So that's where my focus is today at this point. And how did I come to this? Well, it's a long journey. I mean, I've got a few years on me at this point. So, the being fearless part has been very much a personal journey for me. It's about overcoming all of my own self-doubt, my lack of confidence, my inability to speak up, the lack of decision-making, the fear of confrontations, you name it. Anything that I can talk to my folks about, I've already been there, done that, and know exactly what it looks and feels like. And so how do you get to the other side of it? My background is actually non-corporate because I never wanted to be in the corporate world. I always knew that it was the wrong fit. So I've been a bit of a maverick my entire life. I've lived all over the world. different cities, 3 continents, raised my kids, dragged my kids all over the world. I've been a writer, I've been a singer, I've done martial arts. I've done a whole bunch of different things in my lifetime that have given me a wide variety of experiences. And so I came to this kind of late in life. I was in my 50s when I kind of came to a point where, what do you want to do for the rest of your years? And someone suggested I should be a coach because of all my experiences. And so the journey began. And then I ended up writing The Fearless Factor, which was for women specifically. I shared the stories of women discovering they're fearless, as well as my own journey. And then later on, I wrote The Fearless Factor at Work because I've been working with a lot of middle-level managers who really were lacking self-awareness and were lacking the skills to be able to connect with their direct reports well. So the communication piece became really, really important as well. And then along the way, I do behavioral, research, behavioral assessments, if you like, as well as wellness assessments. So it's really all about how do I help people be better versions of themselves? Because I've taken the journey myself to understand I had a lot of potential and I was not living up to it. So, push it forward. And it involves fear. And here's my take on fear. Being fearless is not the absence of fear, but it's the courage to take the next step. And that's where I try to get my folks to think about that. Not the whole mountain, not the whole staircase, just take the next step. Because fear matters to our success. And here's why. It's either going to be a driver or a barricade. And too many people treat it as a barricade. And all it is an emotion. And it's an emotion that you buy into. It's very future-oriented, worrying about the future, and has very little to do with the present. And we'll get into that as we go along. But I got a lot to say on this subject. So
great. Well, we're all ears today. So something you said right there, I really want to go back to. You said something really fascinating I didn't think of. Fear could be a driver or a barricade. Now, naturally, barricade, I get that. Like I've got all my fears. I know what they cost me, and our fears cost us lots of things. But driver, say a little bit more about that.
So when we feel the fear, you know the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, which was written back in the 1970s. The idea of feeling the fear and doing it anyway becomes that driver. Of if I'm getting a signal that I'm afraid of something, then there's something here that needs to be explored. There's something here that's asking me to take the challenge, because it's a challenge. So what is it that you're uncertain about? What is it that you're in doubt about? Where is it that you're holding back because you're afraid that someone else is going to perhaps steal your thunder or is going to tell you you're no good or whatever? What is the messages that are in your head that limit who you are? So the fear as a driver is simply, it's like an alarm bell going off. Oh, there's something to be worked on here. And if you're willing to take the challenge, and that's what it is, it's like somebody screaming at you going, okay, what do you want to do with this one? So the idea for fear as a driver, I think, is really important, because any successful person will tell you, I've had plenty of fear. I mean, I've spoken to people who've never had fear, or at least don't identify with it. But most people can say, yeah, I was making a stretch and I was really scared about doing that. But I made the stretch anyway, because that's that courage to take the next step piece.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's say I'm encountering this moment and I'm feeling that alarm bell, that driver or barricade, like it's inside of me. What's the first step in terms of trying to move beyond that and moving from fear to fearless? Where do we start?
So here's the thing. One has to question one's reality, because the whole thing about fear, primarily, it's imagination based. We make stuff up in order to quiet down or put a label on whatever it is that we're feeling uncertain about. Now, we know that change involves uncertainty. I like to say that you get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's the only way we change. So where's that discomfort? In that discomfort is fear, the fear that I'm not good enough, the fear that I'm not capable, the fear that somebody else is going to steal whatever it is I got going on, the fear that somehow I'm never going to measure up to somebody else's analysis of who I should be. So you have to question and ask yourself, do you have empirical evidence on your fears? 9 times out of 10, you don't. It doesn't exist. So it's imagination based. And as I said earlier, it's future focused. We worry about whether we'll have enough money to survive. We worry about whether we'll still have a job. We worry about what other people are thinking. And on that subject, I like to say what other people are thinking is none of your business, because you can't possibly get in their heads. So, you might as well start with that. So to the point of fear being the driver, it is about every time you take a stretch, and we should all be stretching throughout our entire lives until that moment the pine box arrives, and then you're done. Boom, out of here. But the point being is there's your driver right there.
Yeah. So it sounds like it doesn't matter so much that we have to go back into our childhood and identify where it comes from necessarily.
No. I mean, okay. you can listen to the voices in your head and you can say, who's doing the talking? Because I'll bet you what you like, it's somebody from the past that told you. I mean, my personal story is my father told me for years I'd never amount to anything. And for years, I tried to prove him right. And then, of course, got a little wiser and figured out that that was his and not mine. And that's the other piece about whatever negative thinking is in your head, is who is doing the talking, because it's their stuff, not yours, but you've inherited it and you've taken it on as your belief system when in fact it's not true.
Yeah. So Jacqueline, I'm going to take an example that's very relevant for us all here today. So we talk about uncertainty, worrying about the future. My goodness, the pandemic. And I've often liked to kind of half-heartedly joke about this, but I think it's very true because there's so much uncertainty. The data keeps changing as we learn more and more about COVID. Everyone's come up with their own kind of COVID religion, right? They've got their own set of beliefs and rules about how I'm supposed to operate, how you're supposed to operate. My level of fear is to, can I go to a grocery store? Can I not? Can I even touch my groceries? I mean, there's all this varying degree. And so you have these assumptions, you have these beliefs. How do you question those if you don't know how else to compare that to? I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I would have to say a lot of the time it's because you're uninformed. A lot of people are very ignorant of the facts. And remember, I said empirical evidence. Do you have and people are shooting all kinds of information, disinformation at you on a daily basis at this point. So fear is real, no question. The whole thing of COVID and whether we're going to get COVID and, who's got COVID and whether I should mix with people and do I double mask when I go in there? And yes, I've had a vaccination. And this morning you hear that, the Supreme Court, what's his face, has got COVID this morning. So, and he was vaccinated in January. So then everybody goes, well, I'm vaccinated, so I can still get COVID. So you can go there and you can drive yourself absolutely insane with that. But ultimately, it comes down to what are you doing personally that you feel safe with? So if you want to stay in your house and never go anywhere and all your groceries get delivered and nobody comes through your front door, well, that's your choice. There you go. But if you choose to go into a grocery store, then for God's sake, put a mask on. Don't go in there expecting because you're vaccinated, everything is going to be fine. I wouldn't do it. I definitely wouldn't do it. But it's being aware of your own personal parameters that allows that. But when you get into the fear mongering, that's very much a part of our media these days. It's all fear mongering. Yeah. And you buy into that as opposed to looking at your own self and what you want and what you need. That's a whole different story.
So that's a really important point. We talk about contagiousness of emotions, and the most contagious emotion is fear. And that's why the media is using it so much on both sides, because it draws eyeballs. I mean, it's scandalous and scintillating, and I can't look away. So I love that you're saying, look at empirical evidence, kind of try and challenge your own beliefs, listen to the voices in your head, maybe examine where they come from. Now let's talk about stretching. I love this idea of taking that first step. How are some ways we can think about doing that? So we're challenging that fear in a healthy way, a safe way. So we're growing and becoming more resilient.
Right. So let's take something that a lot of people get involved in the workplace.
Okay.
I want a promotion.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I would love a promotion. I like this. I like this idea.
Yeah, I want a promotion. Oh my God, I have to ask for what I want. How do I do that? Well, first of all, you're going to look to see how well do I think I've been doing in my job for this last period of time? How many allies do I have around me that I can talk to? Who are the people that would support me in taking on a new role? And then what kind of relationship do I have with my boss? Have I had a communicative relationship? Have I had a relationship where we allow each other to share what's going on, in which case there's a familiarity there? Or is it very much a top-down situation and he's unapproachable, she's unapproachable, in which case, that makes it harder for me. And then there's the inside piece, the inner piece, which says, can you really ask for that promotion? Are you really capable of going after that promotion? Is this truly what you want? And you get into that whole scenario with yourself. So taking that next step is, number one, sit down and analyze how well you think you've been doing. Then get some feedback from other people. How well do you think I've been doing? I'm just looking for an honest response here. It's not because I want you to like me, because the approval thing we can do without. But again, be specific about it and keep a record of all the things that you think you've contributed to the company. And these are the things I tell my managers when they come to me and they say, I'm thinking about going after a promotion. And then, of course, it's, well, what kind of relationship do you have with your boss? Because if he's basically just seeing you as a worker bee, yeah, it's going to be a tough sell. But if he sees you as a contributor to that, so the next step for you is always going to be, what can I do to make sure I'm absolutely clear on what's the value I bring to this organization? And I think that's a missing piece for a lot of people. They don't think about analyzing the value that they bring to the organization and then looking for the allies to support them.
So what I love about how you talked about that is you went back to what you said earlier about the empirical data, right? You said, because we start off, what I wrote down was, you start off, you gain evidence and feedback. That's where you start. And then what you also talked about was you also gain support. So get those people around you that can be your cheerleaders and support you and say, yes, you've earned this.
Yeah.
And then do a little bit of planning and preparation. I wrote that down too. Like, how are you going to have the conversation? What's your relationship with your boss?
Yes.
So kind of thinking
and
through
visualize it before you get there, so that you're not going in blind. You're already knowing. If you know something about the person you're going to be talking to, you probably know something about the kind of reactions that they have to specific circumstances. So if you want to visualize, and I think visualizing is really important. I mean, we know that top athletes visualize every move that they make before they get to the Olympics. They know exactly how many strokes they're going to be putting out there. They know exactly what each turn looks like. And we're talking about swimmers. Michael Phelps is an example. He visualized every step of the way what he was going to do. Now, you can also prepare for the alternative, which is you're not going to get what you want. So if you look at that as a visualization, what's your argument for changing that up? Not just, oh, well, I tried, I'm leaving, goodbye. You got to think about, okay, how do we work around this? So I understand your point of view. And again, this is a communication issue. I understand your point of view, but have you thought about, there's ways in which we can frame this up. You've spoken to a lot of communication experts. But the point being is, be very clear in what you're asking for, how you're asking for it, and what the possible scenarios are once you've asked for it. But there's the steps. I just laid out the steps right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm sure there's folks listening right now that say to themselves, I don't think I've got a lot of fears. And they probably do, maybe just aren't aware of it. So when you think about some of the more common fears that you see with the clients you work with, what are some of the most common ones? And what are those fears costing them from in whether it's professionally or personally?
The biggest one is not speaking up. Not speaking up. I mean, how many people sit in a boardroom, in a meeting, and they've got all kinds of ideas running around their heads, or there's things they want to say to somebody who's already said something that they think is bullshit. And they'd sit there quietly and they say nothing. And then they'll go away and they'll complain to somebody else about it. The silence piece. And I've been doing a bunch of interviews for my next book, which is called Fearless Women Leading the Way. And I've done about 35 interviews so far with highly accomplished women. And that piece about speaking up has shown up quite a lot. And these are very successful women. But early in their career, the first question I ask is, where has fear limited your opportunities? Mm-hmm. And frequently it's about, I didn't speak up. I didn't participate. I didn't make it clear what my role was in the room. And that lost me the opportunities, And so I personally, and because I know you have a lot of women listening to your show, it is time for women to step up, to stop sitting silently, to stop doubting their capabilities, to stop thinking that maybe they don't have the goods, because, present company accepted, this world has been run by men for too long and it's a mess. And it's time that women really took charge of being more prominent in senior leadership roles. And that's one of the reasons why I'm writing Fearless Women Leading the Way, because their stories, I hope, will inspire other women to say, okay, they did it, and this is the things that they had to face. I can definitely do it. So encouragement, we all need encouragement. There's no question. But we also have to step out of the negativity that for some people is the constant in their daily life. And that's a loss. And again, I know because I lived there for a long time, and so you have to learn that that's not the truth of who you are. And there's a lot more potential.
It's so interesting, the irony in this, in the sense that, I think in the cases when we don't speak up, we're afraid that, I'm going to say the wrong thing, or they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about, or they're going to think I'm not adding any value. And then the irony is, when we don't speak up, and this happens a lot with my clients, then by the third or fourth meeting of them not talking, people start to say, why are they even on the call? Why are they even here? They haven't contributed. And then they just get removed from the meetings going forward. Yeah. So then their worst fear comes true.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about it, is that you create the circumstances to back up your fears. As I said, my father told me for years I would never amount to much. Well, early life, drugs and alcohol were a huge piece of my early part. I had a child before I, got married, and I had it adopted. And then I got married and I divorced him 6 years later and left him with another child. And then I went on to move from Edinburgh to London to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, there was a lot of, uncertainty. I lived here illegally for several years. Wasn't supposed to be here, because I didn't have the right requirements. Now I do, but back then not. And constantly living on that edge, and so, there's a piece where you self-sabotage. That's really what I'm trying to get to here, is where do you self-sabotage yourself? And by not speaking up, you're self-sabotaging yourself. That's very clear.
So it's, I guess, looking in those moments of when maybe we didn't do something that we felt compelled that we should have, and then examining what is that. So we're in that meeting, we feel like we should have said something and we didn't. So yes. Talk about not speaking up as a common one. Are there any other common ones that you've been seeing from clients that you work with, or from your research that you're noticing are other fears that hold us back?
Let's talk about perfectionism for a moment.
Okay.
That comes up a lot. When you're a high achiever, perfectionism gets in the way because things are never good enough. But what I've discovered over my years of doing the work I've done and working with hundreds of people at this point is perfectionism is tied to I'm not good enough. Because our fundamental fears amount to really two things. There's a lot of things associated, but the primary ones are I'm not good enough and I'm not lovable. So for instance, we look at perfectionism as, high standards. But when you have very high standards, if you've got high perfectionism in your behavior, what happens is you're constantly challenging yourself to be better. And so there's never an end point to that. So the stress is extraordinary. But not only that, you expect everybody else around you to meet those same standards when that may not be their driver. So you're putting pressure on yourself, you're putting pressure on others. And what I say about a lot of high perfectionism is learn self-compassion, i.e., if I didn't hit the mark, I'm okay with that. Because I like to say perfectionism is the enemy of excellence, because excellence is really all about, I want to be really good at what I do. And I'm 150%er. I will never do anything half-assed because it's not in my nature. And I know a lot of people like me. But the point being is that is a behavior that can absolutely be fear-based because it's that proving oneself, high competitive person proving oneself. If you're approval driven, which is the other side of perfectionism, I need you to like me. I need you to know that I like you. And I need you to know that, I'm going to keep you happy before I keep myself happy. I'm working with a client right now whose approval metrics are off the charts, like 98% approval. And she's also 98% dependent. So when I look at that and I say, so where are you not making decisions? Where are you passing off to other people? Where are you busy keeping other people happy and diminishing yourself in the process? Because that's all fear-based again, and it's all tied into that. Am I really capable? Am I really good enough? So, you can get very fancy about all the different psychological elements, but I think it comes down to really, and I know again from experience, for years I felt like I wasn't good enough, that there was no way that I was going to really rise up and shine and become the person I am today. But I've done it. And now I look back on it and I go, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. I could have done so much more earlier. But here we are, there's a rhythm to life. That is what it is.
Well, a couple of things you said in there that I want to make sure I highlight. So one, you remind us that our fears are also lenses. We look at other people through those. Yeah. So I've got to be perfectly perfect. You better have to work too to be perfectly perfect. And if you don't, I don't know what's wrong with you because you're not going to be enough if you're not perfectly perfect. So you remind us of that. And then you also did a really eloquent job of tying them into those two big themes, those big meta themes of either being good enough or lovable. And I think, and you said you could treat the good enough with learned self-compassion. I think you could probably treat the lovable the same way.
Yes.
So
100%.
I think, Jacqueline, I think that was so fantastic. So I know we're getting close on time here. And so I always ask all my guests this question when we get towards the end. What is one life hack you have for us that could either help us to have better conversations or healthier relationships, either at work or at home?
Take the word you out of the conversation. You becomes a blame game. So when you're having a conversation with a difficult one and somebody is, kind of not working against your or working against your interests, you might want to say, this is how it makes me feel. Or if you're in a feedback session, don't start with the negative. Don't start by telling people what's wrong with them. Start telling them what you appreciate about them. Appreciation is highly underrated for too many people. So start with a little bit of appreciation. I like it when you do. I really appreciate when you say. And there's something here that we need to be working on. So the communication piece, the life hack that you're looking for is watch your language. Because when you're pointing fingers and when you're using the word you a lot, you got to look at the three fingers that are coming back at you.
Yeah. Beautiful. So if people want to learn more about you, follow your work, buy copies of your books, where can they go?
My website is jacquelinewales.com, and there's a bunch of stuff on there. And I have a gift for your audience. I have some courses on my website that are singular units. They're little hour-long test, little informational pieces. If they use the code JW21 on these singular courses, they can take it for free. So
wow.
That's my gift to your listeners, and I hope that they will take me up on it. It's just, on self-awareness, on communication, on building your resilience. These are the topics that are available, and I would love to be able to offer that. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn, and there's a great many things to read and to watch and so forth. And also my YouTube channel, of course, Jacqueline Wales, under YouTube. There's a bunch of videos up there too. So yeah, there's a variety of places. So go take a look. And of course, the books are available on Amazon.
As it seems like everything is.
Absolutely.
Jacqueline, this was great. Thank you so much for your insights and perspective today and sharing your story. I really, really appreciated it. I know my listeners did as well. So thank you for all the great work that you're doing in the world, and please keep it up.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
I told you, I got a whole page of notes here. I mean, fear is something we all face, we all have, comes from our own stories, comes from our own backgrounds. But the common theme is it limits us, it holds us back. Whether it holds us back from building the relationships we want to have, or holds us back from even the things we can accomplish. So Jacqueline, right out of the gate, reminds us that being fearless isn't the absence of fear, but it's moving forward with fear present. And she talks about fear can either be a barricade or a driver. And how do we make it more of a driver? How do we use fear to fuel us and help us go forward? And then when I asked her, I said, well, where do we start here? She said, the first step is you have to question your reality. And she reminds us too that fear is all about looking forward into the future about what we think might happen. That person's going to reject me. I'm going to get hurt. All these things that could happen, but it's not based actually in data. She says, what empirical evidence do you actually have? So really try and analytically look at what you have. And the second thing she says is stretch yourself. So stretch yourself. She said, gain evidence and feedback, gain support from other people, maybe plan and prepare, and even visualize the future. Whether that's just a little baby step or the example she gave of even asking for that promotion. I asked her too, what's most common fears that she hears from her clients at work? And she said the two big ones were not speaking up. So people are afraid to speak up. We talked about the things that cost us. And then of course, perfectionism. And she said, regardless of what fear you have, it's all going to track back to one of two things. Either I feel like I'm not enough or I'm not lovable. And she said the antidote for both is self-compassion. So I thought all those were really, really great for us to kind of think about. And then of course, her life hack was really watch your language with other folks. Don't be pointing the finger, say you, and leading with negativity. Try and really be thinking about how you can lead with appreciation and talk with more care and compassion to others. So I love how that compassion, we see that tie in both places. So lots of great stuff there. I hope those gave you some nuggets to take on whatever fear you might be facing in life right now and get you to stretch a little bit past it.